So, hello. It's occurred to me that there are quite a lot of initiatives around quality happening at the moment. DQI has also been around for a long time. The thing that I'm going to talk to you about is just very fresh and new and being piloted at the moment. But quality is quite a big part of our conversation at the moment in the construction industry. And I think one of the things we need to try and do is put all of these initiatives together. So it strikes me that there is probably a whole conference picking up all of these different initiatives and trying to wrap them into one piece. And the other thing that struck me was that DQI looks like, I've not used it before, haven't worked in those sectors, but it strikes me as a very robust system and involves a fair degree of organisation. You have to have a facilitator and so on. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is a system which we have tried to make as brutally simple as possible on the basis that project teams have no time to do extra paperwork. So we've tried to get a balance between making it robust enough that it's worthwhile doing, because I think there's a danger of stripping too much out of things and they don't become worth doing, but at the same time making it reasonably straightforward and to be managed by the project team, so architect, client, project manager, and in due course contractor. So I'm just going to give you a bit of background, and then I think Chris is going to sort of come up on stage and we'll tell you a little bit about a major regen scheme that Engie have been involved in, have been trialling the tracker, and we're very keen to hear your comments. So if you've got any questions, do stick a hand up. So I'm going to give you a bit of background, say where we came from. So about 5 years ago, we set up the RIBA's Client Liaison Group, which is sort of where this originates from. And we did that because we wanted to make the RIBA rather more outward-facing. Institutes have a tendency to be a little bit introverted and introspective rather, and navel-gazing. So we thought we really need to sort of look around us. And we wanted to hear views directly from client bodies. So we also wanted to provide a sort of vehicle that when we got those views from clients about the service they get from architects, as it was at this time, we also wanted to be able to feed that back to the membership so that we could improve what we do as a group, and also feed our thoughts back to the client, so it was a bit more of a conversation. And we wanted to develop tools that could be used to help architects improve their service. So the first thing we did was a series of roundtable discussions. This is going back about 3 or 4 years now, and we spoke to a range of clients in different sectors. So, commercial developers, transport clients, clients in housing, healthcare, contractors were a key client. They're a key client now, particularly with design and build, and wanted to talk to them. And we got a whole range of really interesting feedback from them in terms of what they thought of the service that they get from their consultants. And we put those together into a document which we call Client and Architect, which you can download if you search that online. It's got some really fascinating insight from clients in there, so I'd recommend you do. And we set out the advice that we'd been given under these 5 headings. So championing the vision was saying that clients really value what it is that architects do when they bring the concept and they have the vision for the building. But actually what they really wanted was for that to be seen right the way through. So we're getting a sort of theme about the sort of fragmented nature of our industry and of design, but what we need to do is those good ideas that we have at the beginning, which I think the DQI does very well, and what we're trying to do is to say where we understand what value is at the beginning of the project, we've got to be able to see that through, and clients were saying that they wanted that. There was also a question of listening and understanding, so it's not just paying lip service to the brief, but it's properly understanding what it is that the client is saying, and not saying, yes, okay, fine, I've heard you, I know better though, and I'm going to produce something. So it's understanding, where the reception needs to go in a swimming pool. It's that sort of level of detail, but it's properly understanding. It was about engaging with people in the right way, so that's a sort of leadership thing, but it's saying it's leadership in the right way, so it's working collaboratively, and we need to do that well. It was about making sure that you, again, delivering technical talent and putting it in the context of what we're talking about today. It's saying that, fine, let's develop a great building in the briefing and concept design stages, but let's make sure that we see that through and we deliver it so we don't lose the value that we've developed at planning stage. And finally, there was a very important message about learning and improving. which is partly about POE, post-occupancy evaluation, which, as many of you will know, we don't really do enough of by a long stretch, but it's also saying that we need to continuously be getting feedback from our clients and perhaps from the building users in the longer term about how the process is going, and making sure that we feed that back into the process. So that was the first thing that we did as a group. The next thing we did was an online client survey. This is going back 2 or 3 years now, but I think it was the first of its type. It was the first time that the construction industry has gone out to this sort of number of people. We had nearly 1,000 responses altogether, 1,000 clients responded. And of those, about a third of them were domestic clients doing relatively small projects. A third of them were commercial clients doing larger projects, and a third of them, quite importantly for what I'm going to be saying, were contractor clients who were engaging architects and other consultants, typically in a design and build environment. And we would ask value-based questions. So we had about 30 questions that we were asking them to respond to, and they were sort of value-based questions, and we would ask them to say, were they very satisfied with that aspect of what they were getting, or that aspect of the design, or very unsatisfied. So a sort of 5-point scale. And we set a baseline for what we considered to be good. We said, okay, well, if 50% of the response in that category were in the top 2, the sort of very or quite satisfied, then we would consider that to be good. We encouraged honest feedback, and we didn't want to just get a pat on the back. We wanted to hear what it was that needed to be improved. So I'm just going to show you a few of the real headlines. And again, you can download this. If you search what clients think of architects, you can download this, and there is a wealth of really useful information for any consultants who are working with clients. But some of the headlines, which sort of feeds into what we're doing now in the building in quality. So if we looked at the feedback, and as you go further around the circle, around the clock, you're getting a better result. And as I say, we split the feedback into those 3 categories: private, domestic clients, contractors, and commercial clients. And when we asked about the project overall, so how satisfied are you with the project overall, of the 1,000 or so clients, about 3/4 of the domestic and the commercial clients were very or fairly satisfied. So I think that's a reasonable sort of result, but you'll notice that contractors, only just over half were in that sort of level. So a drop-off with contractors. And then if we asked them about how they rated design skills and ability to meet the brief, similar sort of results, a slight drop-off with the commercial clients, about 2/3 of them very or fairly satisfied. Again, about half of the contractors were. But the key comes when we ask them about process management, by which we mean, the nitty-gritty, the sort of roll up your sleeves, deliver the building, do the technical drawings, the managing the work on site and so on, basically doing what you're supposed to do. And there was a drop-off in all, but particularly in contractors. And we looked at this and thought, right, well, this is something we need to address. And there are a whole range of issues that it threw up, which I'm not going to go into now. But we decided that there was a piece of work to be done, which was to talk more closely within the project team about why these sort of issues are happening. Is it sort of cultural issues and so on. And about the time we were doing this, so about 18 months ago, we had the Edinburgh Schools inquiry came out, and the Hackett review was coming out at that time. And we could see that there was this lack of continuity, this sort of breaking of the golden thread, breaking of the links in the chain. And we wanted some means of dealing with that. And we started off saying, okay, well, what we need to do is, as I say, so this is where the project team is sort of self-contained, so we need to do it for ourselves rather than having external facilitation in this case. But what we do need is for the project team to come together and effectively sign a piece of paper saying we're interested in quality, we want to improve it. So we came up with what we called a joint memorandum of understanding, and as a starting point, we got the 3 then presidents of the 3 institutes to sign the memorandum and say that at an institutional level, they want their members to follow these sort of processes because quality is sufficiently important to do that. And these were the sort of things that we were saying in the memorandum. So it was talking about, I mean, these are fairly common themes that we'll have heard a lot over the last 3 days here. Overcoming cultural bias, that why is it that contractors and architects see things in different ways to some extent, and how can we start to bridge that gap. We wanted to give prominence to the outcomes in the brief. So a lot of the time, sometimes we do get bad briefs, but sometimes we get very good briefs, and very good concept designs. But that quality sort of dribbles away down the process, particularly as the design team or project team changes, maybe before and after the planning application stage. And we wanted to promote progressive, long-term, integrated delivery and ownership structures. We saw this as being a fundamentally good thing. And finally, we wanted to establish a way to identify and track risks to quality. So how do we know? We can normally tell, we can understand how to measure time and cost. They don't necessarily get managed completely, but nonetheless we understand how to do it. But how do we manage quality? So this was what we wanted to do. We felt there were broadly 5 missing pieces that we needed to address. So first of all, if we're going to measure quality, we've got to know what it is we're talking about. And Lynn touched on this. We all use that old Vitruvian commodity, firmness and delight, which all the architects out amongst you will know about. But now we call build quality, functionality and impact. So build quality is, broadly speaking, it is the quality of how the building is put together in RIBA Stage 5, in construction, on site. It's how well it performs environmentally and so on. It's about the building itself. But we also have, very importantly, functionality and impact. So functionality is really how well the building has met the brief in terms of, whether the reception is in the right place in the swimming pool. It's that sort of thing. And impact is the wider quality issues to do with how it impacts on society and the sort of the space around it, really. So we've used those definitions, and they are the sort of things that we're tracking and understanding through the course of the project. But we also wanted to have a better ability to predict future quality. So first of all, you have to establish what quality is. Excuse me. Then you have to decide what quality will mean in your project. And then you've got to be able to predict how that quality will be managed as you go forward. So we need a method of measuring it. These are all sort of fairly obvious steps, but we had to set these out. We thought it'd be useful to have benchmarks to say, we think this is good. This is what good looks like. So we're piloting the tracker at the moment. Maybe some of you have seen it, and hopefully from that we'll get a better sense of what is good quality. And finally, it's about risk control and handling uncertainty. And so we had 5 missing pieces, and we said, well, we also had 5 reasons for using the tracker. As I said, we have concern that people don't want another piece of paperwork that just adds to your workload. So you've got to have really good reasons for using it. What would they be? Well, one thing, we're very aware of this fragmented nature of procurement, particularly in design and build, which I think is where we're finding the most difficulty with quality, where you have one design team, and very specifically in the housing sector, one design team that will deliver the planning permission, excuse me, quite often another will deliver it, and that fragmentation breaks down, has a tendency to lose quality at each step. We have, sorry, I'm losing my, I'm just going to have to take a drink. We also have to, we want to predict the quality better, so we want to be able to say with some certainty that the quality that we set out to deliver, we're actually going to get that at the end, so we need a means to do that. Why would one client do this as opposed to another? Well, one thing might be that for those clients for which longevity and a greater interest in the building when it's been completed is important, this is a way of saying we have thought about this. So you can flag up the difference between a project that hasn't had this sort of process and one that has, because you will have a piece of paper effectively which demonstrates in a sort of quality management sort of way how you have tracked quality and how you've managed it throughout. And by doing that, we're not hiding the project risk. We're revealing that and making sure we understand it. And of course, one of the big issues that has come from all of these things, obviously Edinburgh schools and Grenfell Tower, 2 big and tragic examples, or luckily the Edinburgh schools wasn't tragic, it had the clear potential to be. But there have been cases well publicised of house builders who have had to set vast sums of money to one side to put put good defects in their buildings. So there is a big issue of compromised reputation. So finally, just to sort of explain what it really looks like, as I say, we wanted something which was fundamentally really simple to use. So it's an Excel spreadsheet. And if anyone is interested in looking at it and trying it, the easiest way I find to find it is to just search building in quality pilot, and you'll find the page on the on architecture.com, which has the necessary manual about how to use it and the tool itself. So it's basically a simple Excel tool, and the idea is that at each work stage, the project team comes together, runs through a series of questions which we've set up, which are adjustable to your project should you need to. And we've set out what we've called 6 quality risk variables. So 6 factors that we think are indicators of what will predict quality in the future. So the first set of questions are under the heading of the likelihood of proceeding to construction. So how speculative is the project? So if it's highly speculative, if, say, the client, the developer at the beginning may not even own the site, they may be speculating on being able to get planning permission, increase the value of it, and that their purchase of the site is conditional on that. In those circumstances, they don't have a long-term view, and they're likely to have a lower you're likely to have a lower quality outcome as a result of that. So the first set of questions are around those. And then we go through the others. So attitude to maintenance and longevity. Clearly, you have a longer term view. You're probably going to have a greater interest in quality on the basis that you can't have good cost, good time, and good quality. We're also saying what are the attitudes to cost certainty and program certainty. If there are absolutes in either of those categories, probably you should expect that the quality will be slightly diminished. So again, it's a way of saying, what do we anticipate the outcome of this, and then measuring it as we go through. And then the last 2 are the likelihood of obtaining competitive tenders. It depends on the marketplace and the amount of information that's gone into the tender. And finally, the attitude to collaboration, which I think is an honest look at the project team and say, you know, are we a team that we think is going to collaborate? And that has in part to do with some of the previous questions. And then effectively, at each project stage, the idea is that you would run through the questions as a team, you would agree your responses, and you would set them down. And it very simply gives you, we're not scoring, so we're not necessarily saying we're trying to increase your quality. I think in the same way that quality management, if you sort of use QA process, it's not saying that you're pushing for a higher level of quality, but what it is saying is that you have a level of quality that you want to achieve, that you define at the beginning, and then you make sure that you do achieve it. So this is really doing that. It's saying, let's say, what is the level of quality that is appropriate for this project under these headings, and then we use this to track. So you both have a means as a project team of tracking the quality and monitoring it and managing it as you go through. But at the end of it, you've also got a piece of paper which is useful to pass on to the next people in the chain. If it's design and build and you do have a different team working post planning permission, then maybe they can get a bit more transparency in it. So that's it. And as I say, we're piloting it at the moment, and we're very keen for people to have a look at it and give a view. And I think I'm going to wrap up there.